addition to assessing the reasonable time periods that a franchisee would incur in opening a new franchise, you also have to ask the franchisee how many costs that he incurred, what types of costs he incurred in opening up. And there are many hidden and unexpected costs that are not put in the franchise disclosure document and that are clearly secreted by a franchisor with respect to disclosing things to a franchisee. Now, are these things, is that kind of omission or failure to disclose legal? Many times it is, but that's an issue for another discussion. The hidden or unexpected costs are something that a franchisee can obtain from the previous franchisee by going through a timeline and asking him what he incurred first, whether there were any permitting costs, whether there were legal fees or accountant fees that were not disclosed in a franchise disclosure, the FDD, that particular franchisee incurred. And that's a good proxy for obtaining those gaps in the franchise disclosure document with respect to costs that aren't disclosed. The question also you're going to ask former franchisees has to do with suppliers. How much does it cost? Whether the delivery is on time and reliable. Whether the goods and services they're required to purchase from the franchisor are quality goods, and whether they are able to be sold by the franchisee. You also want to check the backgrounds of these franchisees before they purchase the franchise. If this particular franchise had nothing to do in his or her history with the franchise services or products, and they were successful, that's some indication, obviously, that you can make the transition and be a success. If you've seen prior franchisees unsuccessful when they didn't have a background in this particular field, obviously that's an indication to look at the training issues more closely. Another issue that you'd want to ask a franchisee is whether they receive ongoing help, the help test that we discussed earlier, whether when the franchisee needed help and called, it was available and provided efficiently and effectively. And again, that's a very crucial issue, and the only way you're going to get it is from a former or a current franchisee. The advertising programs that we've discussed, you're going to find out from that franchisee where the advertising has been, whether it's been effective, whether it's been oriented towards a different part of the country, whether it's actually increased sales and revenues for that particular franchisee. Another issue that the franchisee is going to do with respect to due diligence has to do with whether that particular franchisee would invest in another franchise in addition to the one they're operating, or whether if they had the chance they would still have invested and purchased the franchise. Clearly relevant information that can only be gotten from the franchisee himself or herself. And a very general question is whether that franchisee would recommend the franchise. And it's as simple as that sometimes, just asking a very general question and getting that franchisee to begin to speak to you. The next issue that a franchisee needs to look at seriously has to do with renewals. And some franchisees figure, well, I'm not going to be around in 5 years or 10 years to worry about a renewal when I'm signing the initial franchise agreement. That's a big mistake. First of all, a franchisee who's buying a franchise has to believe that he or she is going to be successful. Why are you going to buy a franchise if you believe you're not going to make it 5 or 10 years? It may not turn out to be true, but you've got to have that initial instinct or feel or wish that you are going to be successful, obviously. So you've got to look at the renewal provision seriously. Most franchise agreements now state that on a renewal, the franchisee has to sign what's called the then current agreement being offered by the franchisor at that time. And as you can imagine, the new franchise agreement, 5 iterations in the future, is going to be way more costly and expensive and onerous than the one that you're signing at that time, your initial franchise agreement. And when that happens, I've had many franchisees that were profitable, but on the renewal, given the additional costs and the additional royalty fees, it flips from being profitable to unprofitable, and all the goodwill that the franchisee developed over a long period of time is lost. Thanks for being with me today, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to give me a ring. Thanks again.